In January 2021, PDG Roger celebrated 28 years as a Rotarian. He has been president of the Rotary Club of San Fernando on 3 occasions and an assistant governor for 2 years. He has been the chair of several district committees and is the chair of the District Finance Committee for 2019-2020 and 2021-2022. He is also District 7030's 10 million meal champion. Apart from the last 6 zone summits, he has attended numerous district conferences and the last 10 international conventions. Roger was also a presenter at the Rotary Foundation Centennial Year Convention in Atlanta in 2017. Roger has been the coordinator of Zones 33 and 34 100,000 meal packaging event at both the Norfolk, Virginia and Atlanta, Georgia summits. Last year, Rotary International Directors Peter and Stephanie appointed Roger the Assistant Chair, District Governor-elect training for Zones 33-34, beginning 2020-2021. He is a certified discussion leader for the Rotary Leadership Institute for all of Zone 34. He is a 12-time Paul Harris Fellow and a major donor to the Rotary Foundation, and he served as our district governor during the 2016-2017 Rotary year. Roger spearheaded the first ever joint Rotary-Rotaract district conference in our district. He has a Master's of Business Administration and is the CEO of Carabel, a family-owned telecommunications business in San Fernando, Trinidad, which has been in existence for 55 years. He is chairman of the board of Serval in South Trinidad, a skills learning center for disadvantaged youths. He's also the vice president of the Trinidad and Tobago Golf Association and has held this position for 12 years. He is the special advisor to the board of the Just Because Foundation, a center caring for kids with cancer. PDG Roger, welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Luana. I'm now seeing Bal on the screen.
My apologies. I don't know what happened with my internet, and I'm so well prepared to introduce you and to welcome you as a highly esteemed and distinguished Rotarian, our past district governor, Roger Bose. I am so sorry. I just don't know, you know, these glitches happen with the computer at the wrong time. I have been on the system all the time, and unfortunately, I just wanted to let them know that we were both assistant governors together, that we were both discussion leaders and so forth. But I just lost the opportunity, unfortunately. But welcome, and my apologies. Blame my computer and my internet.
Thank you, Bal, for that second introduction of sorts. And were you all hearing the doggy barking? I wasn't sure if that was Luana's doggy. Quite possibly. Okay, I'll leave that as a visual. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. DG, DGE, DGN, DGND, PDGs, presidents, incoming presidents, all incoming officers, all past officers. Thank you very much for the invitation and for having me this evening to talk about this very important topic, because we are at what would be, just about the midway stage of the current Rotary year. And when December turns into January is usually the time when incoming officers become much more active with some of the things that they would like to put in place, or with the cooperation of the sitting president on board is usually the time when the process of beginning to put certain things that the new board and president would like to see usually starts happening around now. January, as some of you know, on the DG string, for example, is also when there is the International Assembly, and that too is considered as the kickoff point, so to speak, with respect to the arrangements and plans being put in place by the incoming governor for the district as well. So it aligns in terms of the timing with the DGE's plans, the DGE's training, which is what we are kicking off today, and obviously those plans that you as incoming officers need to do. Okay, I'm not sure who is in control of the screen sharing, but I would need control of the screen sharing, please, because I seem to have lost it there for a second. Don't know why. Barring that, today's topic is determining the health of our clubs. And the idea here is that similar to what I just described with respect to the time of the year and what we should be doing at this time, from time to time, this being such a good time, it is necessary and advisable to understand the true state of our clubs. I think that if I were an incoming officer and I didn't have a good grasp of what the state of my club was, then I would likely be, then I would likely be in a disadvantageous position with regard to what are the things that I would be giving my attention to. Thanks. Are you all seeing the screen now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Thanks for the help. Okay. So I was saying that determining this would be a good time, obviously, to make a determination of what the state of your club is. And I'm suggesting very strongly that anybody who is coming into the position should be looking at things that have been apparent to them from their prior preparations or things that they are fully aware of being part and parcel of their own club for some time. And so this is a good time to do that exercise, and this is what I'm suggesting should be done. So I think many people are very familiar with doing what is called a SWOT analysis, where we determine our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And in this case, I'm referring to our particular clubs. A lot of people, having mentioned in the past about doing a SWOT analysis, don't usually drill down too much into what does that require of us to do? How could I carry out this exercise? Is it something that is going to be done during the course of a regular meeting? And so just to drill down a bit into what the purpose of this exercise is and how we actually carry it out, I want to say, first of all, that it is very important, A, to ask for permission from your current president to carry out this exercise with the understanding that it's going to be good for the entire club and for all the members of the club. And then what I suggest strongly that you should do as well is to arrange a meeting that is separate and apart and completely and totally focused only on this exercise, and not try to have it be part and parcel of a regular meeting or a committee meeting or a board meeting or anything else that is quote unquote regular business of the club. This is extraordinary business of the club because it's something that needs to be given the complete attention of all those who can take part. And obviously, under the circumstances for such a discussion, you would want to have as many people take part in this as possible. So a separate and different and special meeting should be called in order to have the discussion about carrying out a SWOT analysis. And it might be prudent at this time for the incoming president to be the person who should be involved with either leading or leading with the current president to carry out this said exercise. It's important, in my opinion, that every club knows and can list and have for everybody's viewing a common understanding of what their strengths and weaknesses are. Just to give you some examples, of course, there are many, because a lot of our clubs would have very similar ones, and a lot of our clubs would have very different ones for obvious reasons. But examples of strengths that a club may want to may wish to emphasize is the fact that they have a strong membership. For example, I know that there are many clubs in our district that have a very good, solid, strong membership, and that is certainly a strength. We'll talk a little bit more about that as I go down later on. Clubs that are well run, meaning from an administrative perspective, many of the clubs that are a lot more successful with the way that they not only transition, but the way that they carry out projects on a year-to-year basis, including those that have plans that are of a longer range than just 1 year, are usually clubs that are well run. So a club that's well run is certainly another good example of strength. And one other example of strength that I would give that I know falls into the category of a lot of clubs in our district is that they have a good financial standing. I know that some clubs are in a much better state than others. We'll talk a little bit again because of the fact that if you don't have a good financial standing, then it could potentially be a weakness, which we'll talk about in a minute about how we're going to address. But just giving you some examples of what strengths. One more I'll give you, for example, is that some clubs have very highly experienced people when it comes to carrying out projects. They're good project managers, for example, and that has them in good stead when it comes to carrying on projects, rolling over projects, and or starting new ones. Okay, so weaknesses, and one of the obvious ones that I just mentioned is that you're not in a good financial position, and that doesn't allow you to do the things that you want to do. Similarly, if your club is not well run, it could create a lot of problems. Obviously, these would be problems that emanate from within, and like with any other aspect of our life or our business life, if you have serious problems from within, then obviously what you and your board would be trying to do would more than likely tune into trying to out fires, as we would say in English, alleviate problems on a day-to-day basis, because you never dealt with these inherent weaknesses that you took over, basically. Similarly, the opportunities and threats are a good thing for us to openly speak about as well. From the threats perspective, I think everybody could use, the COVID pandemic and the restrictions that come with that as an obvious threat to our existence, our capability to fundraise, for example, our capability to get together and do things that we are accustomed to doing as a group, obviously, and other things to that extent when it comes to COVID issues. It might also put us in a position, or it might also threaten rather the membership of our club, because people who are very much for the getting together and doing things in person may not necessarily be as keen when it comes to the fact that we are not able to do that. With respect to opportunities, which is a box that I believe that we should give a lot of attention to for obvious reasons, opportunities include the exact opposite of what I just mentioned just now with regard to not being in person, which means that I know, for example, that there are a lot of clubs that have actually attracted quite a few new members during the time when they were doing a lot of online Zoom meetings, etc. And that's an interesting point and an interesting opportunity for other clubs who may not have been able to capitalize on that. Perhaps we should talk to some of these clubs who, in whatever way, in whatever strategy that they use to attract people in this kind of environment, is certainly an opportunity for all the rest of our clubs to look into and to try to hopefully to replicate as well. Another opportunity that I think that is a really interesting thing to talk about in this analysis, and I believe this is probably an across the board opportunity for all of us, is during this time when we obviously have to do things so differently, isn't it a good time to do some, which is collectively what the SWOT analysis is doing, but the opportunity in particular I'm speaking about now is that time to do a good hard look at ourselves, the way we do things, the way we manage ourselves, and give us some time to focus on club as, in my opinion, a time frame that we have between now and the middle of the year when the new Rotary year starts, to put certain things in place that we can give our full attention to trying to fix in order to make ourselves a better club starting into the new year. So what I'm saying is, because of the fact that we're not able to meet in person as often, we're not able to go out into the community, maybe in big numbers to do certain things, and we have to have Zoom meetings. Okay, we have to have more Zoom meetings, and that's fine. let's have more Zoom meetings where we would be able to capture the attention of everybody to seriously get certain very deep problematic areas focused on and resolved during this time when we were forced to do that. Because when things get become different in terms of us being able to go back out potentially with us having received vaccines possibly and the entire way that we did things in the past, perhaps getting closer to how it used to be before, then it might mean that this opportunity that we have right now of being a little bit cooped up and giving ourselves the opportunity to do that research that we needed to do that we kept putting off, make those notes or do that analysis of that particular thing that we didn't have time to do during the time of having to drive to work and all the other things in our life that had us out more. Now that we are in, perhaps we could use that time to fix things for the future. Okay, next slide, please. Assessing the results of this SWOT analysis that we do is also something that is very important, because I also know of entities, not just Rotary clubs, but certainly clubs as well, who have done the part that I just described and did decide and agree that it was an excellent exercise, that everybody was able to contribute to what they thought was important in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And it sort of put everybody on the same page with respect to feeling that they were part of the same energy that the president and incoming board is, I hope, trying to get everybody's mood to align with, so that there is a sense of camaraderie going forward with whatever the plans and objectives are going into the new year. So these results, good. These results would do two things. It would, like I said, put everybody on the same page, as well as it would have everybody understanding in a collective fashion what are the changes that everybody has come to realize from the analysis need to be made. So I think that how should I put it? The mood of the membership, despite the fact that we have all these other challenges that we have to face, would at least be a mood of togetherness with respect to conducting the SWOT and being on the same page with some of the things that need to be addressed first. So your SWOT is done. How do you determine these changes? What is next? And perhaps pinpointing the major weaknesses or certain major weaknesses you should be doing, because you may come to realize that there are many weaknesses that may need to be addressed, but you also need to be realistic about the time frame and about how much time and effort you can put towards this. And therefore, maybe you can't fix everything immediately, in other words, is what I'm trying to say. But there are some things that I'm sure that you can prioritize that would be deemed or agreed to be much more important than others that you should probably give more attention to. So my suggestion to you would be that the top two weaknesses that you have identified might be the things that you can give major attention to try to fix or certainly address with a timeline that hopefully would have a positive result going into the transition to the new year. Now, I want to give you an example, and I say this from experience as a district governor in the past, continuous discussion with many persons between then and now, I guess my knowledge of what transpires in our district up to today. And that is that many clubs, I wish I could see your faces now because I can't, but many clubs would probably nod their head when I say that they have a problem with the way in which they are run, meaning they have administrative problems within their clubs. I believe that again, going back to the example I gave earlier of a weakness being that if you have these inherent problems, it makes it much more difficult for the club to do what it intends to do, or for the leadership to do what it intends to do, if it has to keep dealing with these issues that if you were to put to bed at some point in time in terms of bringing processes that other clubs have in place or RI already has in place that you are not following properly at the moment, then this is a fantastic time to give that attention to what I was speaking about before, internal things. In other words, putting your house in order. So there are clubs who have problems with their accounts. They have problems with trying to get their accounts up to date. They have problems with balancing their books. They have problems with the administrative process in terms, not just from a financial perspective, but in terms of all kinds of other things. Reporting, for example, who is supposed to report, who is not supposed to report, when do reports go to whom, for what reason do I have to take minutes, when and how are minutes given to the board. All these very regular administrative things that allows the club from an administrative perspective to click properly are some of the for many a club, a huge weakness that they do not ever seem to find time to address, or they think that the current leadership will simply allow or pass on or expect that the new leadership will address. And unfortunately, that's A, not fair, and B, probably not going to happen. Because in the same manner that you may have heard this before or been told this before, or felt that it was one of the things that you wanted to address when you became president or you became a director, and then obviously when the year started and you became busy and you and all these changes were put in our face that we had to deal with in an extraordinary way, obviously, it meant that some of these things got put aside or get, just like how we naturally prioritize things, and sometimes we feel that those things that had to be addressed would be addressed later, or I guess what you could call procrastination is a big problem, as we all know. And it means that it's quite possible that some of these things that you should have addressed internally will just get passed on. And I think that what I'm trying to really try to forcefully say to you now is this is exactly that really good time when you can deal with these things, put your processes in place, get your accounting system sorted out, get your reporting system sorted out, so that you're on a much more solid footing, in my opinion, when you do come into office, because all of these important administrative things would have been put in place already. You could decide on reducing as well one or two of the threats that were identified from the SWOT analysis. So there would have been various things that you identified in your analysis that could threaten your increase in membership goals, for example. And I think that if you additionally were to give some attention to how you could reduce or eliminate one or two of those threats that you had come up with, I think that would also put your club in a much better position, a much healthier position going forward. Now, to me, the biggest point to focus on with regard to this assessment and with regard to changes that need to be made and with the timeline is we need to pay attention to people. We need to pay attention to each and every member of our club. And one of the biggest mistakes I see of incoming officers is they say that they want to hit the ground running, which is good because that means they're trying to put certain things in place. They also say that they would like to have more support from the members of the club and so on. They say some of these very lovely statements that we hear people in leadership positions say without having any meat to it. And I think that the way in which you can add meatiness to those statements is by, at this point in time, when you have the time, reach out to everybody and speak and deal with your membership as people. everybody is different. I know some clubs are 10 people. I know some clubs are 60 people. And obviously it means that this challenge would be a little bit different and obviously easier for a club of 10 people than for a club with 60 people. But I think that if being a member of your own club, you know the vibe and you know from the SWOT analysis what were the major things that need addressing. And so you have time between now and then to give that person-to-person attention that I think is very important in making sure that you have people on board and that you look them in the eye and they can feel that there is real attention being given to them, their ideas, their way of thinking, their contributions or lack of, and how you could turn that around. Pay attention to people from now, and I guarantee you it will make a huge difference to you going forward. Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about your club and its members carrying out projects and why are doing projects so important. So, you know, many people speak about the fellowship aspect of Rotary being important. Some people want to argue that the fellowship aspect is even more important than the service activities of a club. I really don't think that there is any need to talk about which one is more or less important, one. And two, I think that if we realized that in the carrying out of the service projects, more often than not, and I think a lot of people would also hopefully be nodding their head at what I'm about to say, it brings about that camaraderie that sometimes we seek separately and independently, when to me it should be all part and parcel of the same activity. So an impactful service activity should naturally, in my opinion, bring about that camaraderie and cooperation that you're trying to find in a line, particularly. You know, you want to have a line so that we could have more camaraderie. But my suggestion is, I hope some people are not thinking that I'm going crazy, but my suggestion is that there are clubs, and I've seen this for myself, to be honest, and I've seen it in my own club as well, to be honest, and that is that the mere fact that the time and attention that is given by all members towards service and other activities of the club is what in itself builds the camaraderie that we're speaking about. And that in fact, I don't think that one needs to be speaking about or planning a line separately, because many a time clubs that operate in the manner that I just described have those kind of lines anyway. They just happen. They don't have to be on a calendar per se. But again, I feel that this comes from when we give the correct amount of time and attention to making our service activities impactful and meaningful. So it's hugely important, in my opinion, with respect to the health or the future health of our club, to give attention to satisfying Rotary's goals, you know, obviously observing our community, allowing our membership to feel more involved, and by extension, practice fellowship at the same time. It creates enthusiasm. I think it creates inspiration, as far as I'm concerned, and it makes everybody feel more fulfilled, which is one of the things that a lot of us want and crave out of being in a club. But it makes us feel fulfilled in providing service to others and in making a difference in our communities. That's why the planning of projects, even whether they are repeat projects or new projects that you intend to introduce, is very important to have not just a committee to be involved in, but like in my club, which I have to show off a bit about, the fact of the matter is, while we have committee chairs for all the avenues of service, obviously, we have a club service person, etc. Everybody is actively involved. There's no such thing as no one person in our club not knowing what the rest is doing, or to what extent, at what point the plans are made for the activity of the club, because everybody is involved all of the time. So I think that one of the things, hopefully, as an incoming service chair, that you might want to think about is, yes, obviously you have your committee meetings to thrash out details, but the sharing of the information needs to be immediate. with everybody. And maybe that's one of the things that we learned in the most, in this new environment that we have to operate in because of Zoom and other means of online communication. And that is, I'm not talking about social media now necessarily, but what I'm speaking about is I've seen also many clubs and even presidents of clubs carry on the business of their club as though it's only on the day of the meeting that communication needs to take place. So your meeting is on a Thursday, and although we had a committee meeting the next Monday, thinking that or expecting that the outcome of the committee meeting is only discussed the Thursday after at our meeting, to me, doesn't make any sense. It wastes time. B, it doesn't actively keep people involved in terms of being updated with information from all the different spheres of the club on a just happened basis. So that if you think about it for a minute, if two of your committees met between Thursday's meeting and next week, and that information was shared with everybody right away, it means that when I do attend next week Thursday's meeting, A, I don't need to have somebody rehash everything for me because I'm in the know, and B, I'm in a much different position mentally from the point of view of I already know that we got that check signed. I already know that that member was able to get a sponsorship from the person for the transportation that we need for said project. I already know such and such, which means that to me, what would happen at your next meeting is that it would be more meaningful to the people who attend, and it means you would be further ahead of the curve with respect to what your timeline is and when you're able to successfully do your project. That too not only keeps people interested, which is very important to the health of your club, but it means that everybody feels like they are part of the process and are keen to get the updates on a regular basis so that your meetings become not rehashing last week. And think about it and look at each other when I'm saying what I'm saying, because I'm sure a lot of us experience this right now, that the first 5 or 10 minutes of a meeting might be rehashing something from last week. And guess what you're going to hear? You're going to hear somebody say, oh yes, I was supposed to find out about the transport. Prez, I didn't get a chance to, and I have been guilty of doing this in my own club meetings when I stop them and say, but we talked about this last week, Thursday. And only today, Thursday, a week later, you're saying what you're saying. So it's not about a blame game or finger pointing that I'm suggesting here, of course, right? I am just saying that the activity of our club should be something that has everybody involved on a regular basis, not necessarily 1 hour long, or not necessarily waiting until next week Thursday's meeting to address. Moving on. Is the club effective with internal and external communications? The reason for this, obviously, is because the certain aspects of the membership of our clubs, the health of our club in terms of service activity and how many people we have involved and so on, has an impact, or is impacted by rather, both how we communicate internally and how we communicate externally. Obviously, the internal part has some things that I already spoke about. I hope you're seeing a picture that I'm building here, where if my club administration is not good, it means the treasurer doesn't know what the secretary did, and the secretary doesn't know what the president did, and so on. Those are some of the things I spoke about earlier that might be threats or might be weaknesses that we've now given attention to. And the people who are coming into those positions are doing all the courses that they're supposed to do on the learning center. They're calling in their particular area of responsibility. They're calling people that they know, or people who did the position in the past, or people in other clubs, or assistant governors, or past district governors, and asking for advice, etc. So they're properly preparing themselves for what is the correct way to carry out their position. Understanding, because this is what the president and the board would be imparting to them, and hopefully part of this discussion will also be imparting to them, is important for you to be ready so that you could play your role in helping your club to be effective with their internal communications. So if a club is well run, it also means that the internal communications has been addressed and is working like clockwork. And so that allows the machinery of the club to be clicking properly and not breaking down. And that, as you can obviously tell, would alleviate problems to deal with so that you can carry out your projects and get to the next area of focus, which is communicating externally to the best of your ability, all these wonderful things that you do, that you're doing with your club. So on the coattails of Rotary International's brand, obviously what we do is adding to the reputation of our brand, which is one of our responsibilities. By the way, it's in the code of policy that not only sometimes when you talk about the negative things like bringing Rotary into disrepute, which is a bad thing, obviously, and important to be giving attention to, especially if there's an issue with that in your club. But also on the positive side, to try as best as possible through the activities that we do to uplift Rotary's brand as much as we possibly can. And by that, I mean communicating as far as possible. This is part of our PR aspect now, which to me is not either independent or alone or should be operating separately or have a shoo-shoo committee doing. PR is about everybody. PR is literally about everybody and what the club is doing on an ongoing basis. But not just talking about the Rotary brand as such, obviously, but also letting people know this is the kind of club that we are, a good, well-run club, a club that displays a lot of camaraderie amongst its membership, and a club that obviously, from the things that you're seeing in the community, does good service work. Reinvigorating fellowship, I think, is also one of the good things that comes out of good internal communications. Some people talk about, for example, as the example I gave just now about the guy forgetting what he did last week. Okay, just to add to that point, the thing is, had he been informed, as I was explaining with regard to what the committee who met on Monday came up with, it would likely have jolted him into what he was supposed to have remembered to do. And he's knowing that he's going into the meeting on Thursday probably propelled him into doing what he was supposed to do, because the internal communication is good. And the internal communication also as a secondary advantage spurred him on into remembering what he was supposed to do as well. And believe me, it's something that takes over all of the membership, because you don't want to be the boboli, as we say, also, meaning a person who looks stupid at the next meeting, who is the one making excuses and everybody else seems to be on the ball. The thing about Rotary, you know, Rotary and time, I know this is another topic, but I just want to make this point very quickly. People complain a lot about, oh, Rotary takes up a lot of time. And I completely disagree if you take it in small doses, meaning that you can get a lot of things done. 5 minutes conversation with the president every week. I have probably done that for my entire Rotary life, more than 5 minutes to be frank. But I'm just saying, 1 5-minute conversation with the president tells you a lot. 1 5-minute conversation with the treasurer, if you need to speak with them, tells you a lot. And 1 5-minute conversation with the head of the committee for the project that is the next project of what our club is going to be doing together is enough. You've only now had 3 5-minute conversations, which probably puts you in a much better and advantageous position come next week Thursday when meeting comes around. How can anybody complain about that? How does that take so much out of you? And I think it's quite unfortunate that the society that we're in now seems to find that, you know, the busyness thing is a good excuse to use or would get me out of trouble. And in my opinion, it does the opposite. It says in a way that you don't think that I'm busy too, which I am, but it also says that I can't find or think of how I could spend 5 good minutes with each of those 3 or 4 people in my club in order to be in the know and to be part of the same collective that is trying to move forward and not be one of the problematic parts of my club that keeps pulling it backwards. Internal and external communications, very, very important. Now, last topic is to do with a leadership training program. And by that, you know, I know that when I've mentioned this in the past, some people didn't exactly understand what it meant, especially incoming officers from smaller clubs. So here's some of the responsibilities that I think that if it's not obvious to you from your training, or it's not obvious to you from what you will hear going forward or from your learning center courses, think about this very carefully, please, because this is the beginning of your training program and there is lots for you yet to do. You are about to become the president or director in your club come 1st July 2021. How much thought have you given to A, what you plan to do, B, how you plan to present yourself, C, what are your goals and objectives and are they achievable, etc., etc. All those lovely statements I said earlier about I want to hit the ground running and I'm so enthusiastic and all that is all great. How many people think about the 30th of June 2022? I paused for a second there because I feel that there are people on this call whom I go, well, what about it? I mean, oh, okay, it's the end of the Rotary year next year. You need to give that just as much thought now with respect to the beginning of the year as you have to give to the end of the year for a lot of reasons. One is it puts the timeline in perspective for you. We all know that we're going to have this position for 1 year. It puts the timeline in perspective for you and it gives you better focus with regard to your legacy as well. And by that, I mean, not just how many things you were able to achieve during the time that you were in the position that you're about to take, but a plan to exit in a graceful way as well. And not only from a personal perspective in that I am aware of the fact that my responsibility or my post is a finite time, and therefore it's equally important, in my opinion, to remember that 12 months is the period and you should have a start and a middle and an end. A lot of people have at least the start and many of them have the middle portion, but nobody thinks about the end till it's nearly the end. And then they panic and they do stupid things, etc. But I wouldn't go down that road. The point is you need to think about it from now so that it gives you perspective. The other thing about gracefully exiting as well is the fact that in the same way that you have certain expectations right now as we speak, you have certain expectations, whether they are open to all or not, they might be bottled up, I don't know, about how your sitting president should be treating you. And it might, if I asked for responses, I might get a wide range of responses as to how you feel you should be treated as the incoming person. I'm bringing that up because A, I think it's a really important open discussion. This also adds to determining the health of your club and or breaking down certain barriers. Have an open discussion with your current president about your expectations and his or hers, so that there doesn't seem to be imbalance, there doesn't seem to be disharmony when it comes to a club meeting or a committee meeting or any type of meeting that doesn't seem to have the understanding of a balance between the respect shown to the incoming officer as well as vice versa. So it's important from the point of view of the plan to exit thoughts as well. I'm not saying they should be lengthy, but it will happen and therefore you need to plan for it as well. And your legacy and what I talked about, a graceful exit, includes, in my opinion, how you will therefore be expected to act, or the perception of how you're expected to act when you are the president in January 2022, and you have to have the same meeting with your incoming officer at that point in time. So perhaps you haven't thought about it yet. Maybe some of you have, that's great. It's something that you need to give attention to. And that, to me, boils down to the topic on the screen right now, which is about the leadership training program. To me, the leadership training program in every club should be continuous, obviously, but it should be understood the role that is played between the incoming officers and the outgoing ones in terms of what kind of program do we have to train, probably I should start with identify, or to train, actually it could be in any sequence. Identify, train, develop leaders in your own club is part of your responsibility as well, and will be part of your legacy come ending of next year too. What did the current president have in, what would the incoming president, you all, what would you all have done or put in place to ease the transition, show that respect to each other in a way that the rest of the membership could see and admire and understand that there is a baton to be passed, and not only is the person receiving the baton positioned in the right way, but the person handing off the baton is also positioned in the right way. I'm speaking figuratively, of course, right? And so these are things that I believe very important as well with respect to the overall picture of determining the health of your club, as well as doing something about it starting literally today. So important points to ponder just to finish off now. If your SWOT analysis reveals problems, you still have time to address them. I think that's what I was kind of alluding to at the end of the previous point. So don't think that if some of the things that I have put to you today are things that you want to give attention to, or things that you have not really thought about enough that you want to start doing now. I'm saying you still have time. So although you have some grand plans, which are wonderful, and you have your own way of doing things, your personality will be reflected when you become president and directors of the board. Obviously, nothing wrong with that. It's still very important, I think, that now that your SWOT has revealed information to you that you either knew before or it's brand new to you, use that information to your advantage. So if, as I harp on a lot, the club administration problem, for example, is something that your club is going through, try for it to be your legacy to have been the president who finally fixed that bloody problem that existed for however long. Why not that? Remember as well that your SWOT analysis might bring up a lot of things, more, certainly a list of things, perhaps not only in the strengths column, but maybe in the weaknesses or in the threats column. And don't try to be a superhero. You've probably heard that in previous training. You'll probably hear it again. Don't try to be a superhero, but because you have time, you can prioritize these things. So perhaps you can make a decision or collectively make a decision that fixing club admin and our accounts is something that we need to address now. After that, we could fix things to do with how we run our board meetings. Thirdly, we could fix things with problems with timing within our regular meetings, for example. Some of these things that point to internal problems that I was talking about before, you can prioritize those things so that you could be, and you and the club, obviously, and the membership of your club, obviously, by extension, in a much different and hopefully more advanced and positive stage and state of mind by the time you are actually going to take the gavel. So, last point, obviously, while I said, and I think that you have time still to do these things, in between the learnings that you will be doing, in between the reaching out to people that you feel comfortable with to get some advice about, I am very much one of those people I feel comfortable with speaking to anyone about with regard to things I spoke about today or anything else. But at the same time, don't procrastinate because July isn't that far away. So you do have things to do, you do have things to put in place, but you need to get off your tail and start doing them now based on what I've said, hopefully, and how they could fit into the plans that you already have to address, the time that you have to allocate to your courses and so on. But while that is important to do, having one-on-ones with other people is also very important so that you could identify and deal with your specific problems in your club. I know it's not across the board, but you have time, but at the same time, don't procrastinate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think Liz is in charge of questions, so we can go ahead and take questions now.
Hi. Hello. Thanks, PDG Roger, as usual, feisty, full of information. We do have one question in the chat box, and Simone is asking, and well, she's saying fellowship is a very important part, well, it's very important to the health of the club and through various projects. However, the COVID situation is very difficult. How can we, during this situation, keep our club in a healthy and convivial convivial manner, especially for those who are absolutely fed up with the Zoom.
Good point. And you know, one of the things I did not see, and this brings up that thought now, is that this is also the time that I have seen many examples of really wonderful creativity and innovation. And so having a meeting, you know, a lot of times we think that a Rotary meeting must only be, sorry, the business of Rotary is only to be dealt with at a Rotary meeting. And I think that we lose sight of the fact that we can talk and should be talking about our health issues, our communication issues, all our issues on a more regular basis. And therefore, people who feel a little bit left out, those are the exact conversations that they could be roped in. It's just an idea. They are the people who you could rope into these conversations to have, so that when we come to the next regular Rotary meeting with its specific agenda, we'll be in a better place, I feel, mentally, in terms of having contributed or having felt like I was a part of. Innovative thought is now something that I think that we should be actively speaking about. So we should be challenging people with either some kind of reward or some other kind of way of encouraging people to be innovative with respect to the way that our meeting should be next. How can a Zoom meeting not be boring? Maybe it's the length of time. Maybe it's the manner in which, the frequency in which we have found ourselves doing it. Maybe we need to have committee meetings as a breakout session in the same regular meeting. And then, like what we've done with other presentations that we've heard of late, come back into the main meeting room and everybody does a 5-minute report immediately. Do things that are different, that have people thinking and active and not staring into space and or turning off their cameras to do something else. You need to talk about, you know your people better than I do. So you need to talk about what kind of things can we do differently. Openly, you need to have this discussion in an innovative way to get everybody involved. Liz?
Thank you, PDG Roger. We have a question here from Abby Vincent. Where can we access to leadership? Where can we get access to leadership training programs?
If the person is asking about online learning, there is on the you go to My Rotary or you go to the Rotary main page, and there is a tab called the Learning Center or Learning Center, Sonia, not the, right? Just Learning Center. Learning Center. You touch on Learning Center, it may ask you for your position. And I think that your position may determine what courses in the Learning Center you're able to access. But just hit tab Learning Center, enter your credentials, and you will see a range of online learning material available. And you know, the thing about it is, because I've done many, to be frank, and apparently as an incoming officer of my own club, I have more to do. I have a little problem with that. I'll have to take up with the DG separately, but in all seriousness, they are really interesting. They are really, really interesting. They are done in such a way that they are, many of them present the information to you in a fun way. It presents it to you in a way that keeps your interest. I don't know how else to describe it unless you try it yourself. So it's not like, you know, pages and pages of reading to make you sleepy. It's actually very interactive things. You have to click your mouse, you have to do something, you have to interact with the program in one way or the other. And it makes you learn. It's very interesting. 30 minutes goes by, whoosh, and you realize, oh my God, I learned so much. And after each session, you're able to print a certificate for yourself to say, look, Prez, look what I did. So that's my answer. Lisa, you kind of froze. I don't know if somebody could take over.
There aren't any more questions in the chat. Thank you, PDG Roger.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think you were very clear and concise, very informative presentation. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Any follow-up questions? Please raise your hand. No? Okay, so EP Lisa, you're back. Please proceed with the vote of thanks.
Yes, thank you, PhD Luana. Froze there for a second. DG Lyle, DGE Sonia, DGN Leslie, DGND Brian, PDGs, Rotarians, Rotaractors, good evening. I've always thought that giving a vote of thanks to be tricky, as you're very likely to forget someone. However, this evening I'll begin with Rotary in helping me or all of us to develop our skills in puzzles, or maybe I should call it tongue twisters. The combination of the letters used in the varying posts can be a mouthful, and all in one sentence, like I just did, yes. Thank you, Rotary. PDG Roger, what I've learned from you over the years is that you're very candid and to the point individual, and tonight's delivery was no different. As you mentioned, this is a timely presentation as we're at the midpoint of 1 year, and the other that prepares, and we're preparing for another that asks us to serve to change lives. You touched on varying aspects that you can do as to check the health of your club, and recommended in each scenario that the current and incoming executives work together on these. You also made an interesting point that the pandemic has presented an opportunity for some time to possibly execute a SWOT, and every club should consider doing this. Take the time to look inward and take stock of where you are. Begin to prioritize your weaknesses or threats, and don't try to be a superhero. Reach out to members as individuals. Build camaraderie. This can also help to build communication for your club, internally and externally. DGE Sonia, PhD Luana, and team, great work in coordination. I'm looking forward to the other sections. Rotarian Sean and team who worked tirelessly in the background for always being there. Rotarians and Rotaractors present this evening, thank you for taking the time to join us. And those who are unable to make it, I'm thanking you in advance, because I know I will see you at the next session. When the current Rotarians share their reports of tonight's session, I know you won't want to miss the others. Thank you all again, and see you on February 18th.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, PP Lisa. Please remember to fill out the questionnaires and register for the next session on the 18th, which will be facilitated by PDG Lara. And she will build on the presentation you just heard and focus on setting goals and building consensus and collaboration, management of your club's finances, etc. So it's going to be as good as this one was. So thank you and have a good night.
No. Before everybody goes, please, I just have something to say. Thank you very much, PDG Roger, District Trainer-elect Luana, thank you. I encourage them, and thank you to all the Rotarians and Rotaractors on this call this evening. It's important that we get our incoming officers to attend these sessions. This is the only way we can train you, because we don't have the opportunity to do so in person. There are quite a few sessions, but they are all worth every single minute that you attend. So I urge you, please, to sign up, get your incoming officers so to do. My other mission this evening is to encourage you to sign up for the district conference and pets on the district conference website that allows the clubs at 500 US to participate in all these pet sessions as well as the district conference and pets in April. Please get your clubs signed up. These are sessions not to be missed. I encourage you to sign up, to come to them, register for them, but also please do the courses on the Learning Center. Those courses are important to your preparation for coming to these sessions, and it helps you understand some of the material. There were several questions from the last session that were surprising because you need to do the sessions to come. Prepare yourselves for these evenings. 1 hour, an hour and a half for an evening is not difficult. The sessions, as PDG Rogers said, are 30 to 45 minutes, but the information in them is invaluable. Thank you so much again. Please join us for the next session, and I look forward to seeing you all next week, Thursday. Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.